I want to begin with a single word: boundary. We use it so often. You need to set boundaries. Respect my boundaries. I'm working on better boundaries. But have you ever wondered where that word actually comes from and what it truly means for your freedom, especially when it comes to black tax? Hi, my name is Pumza Chuene, a financial and boundary strategist. Today, I want to take you on a short journey on the history of boundaries and to the heart of your empowerment and show you how boundaries can transform Black tax from a burden into an empowered choice. Let's start with the history of boundaries. The original word boundary came from the French word borné, but this English word started originally back from the 14th century. It comes from an old French word, borné, which means limit or a border. In those times, a borné wasn't an idea. It was a stone or a wooden marker placed between pieces of land. To move or destroy a boundary, a stone, was a serious crime. Sometimes it was even punishable by death because it meant that you were stealing land, power, and identity. So, from the very beginning, a boundary was a sign of ownership, a way of saying, this is mine, this is where I begin, and this is where you end. But here's the powerful truth: boundaries were not just about separation, they were about order, they were about balance, and they were also about respect. In medieval France, to respect someone's borné was to recognize their rights and their dignity. And that's exactly what personal boundaries are today. They protect your sense of self, your energy, and your peace. Now let's move from the land to life. As language evolved, so did the meaning of boundaries. By the 18th and 19th centuries, as psychology developed, the idea of a boundary moved from land to life. It became more than just a line on the ground. It became a limit within the soul. It began to represent the invisible lines that separate your needs from other people's expectations. So boundaries evolved from being stones that divided farms to self awareness that divides peace from pressure. The shift from physical land to emotional life is the foundation of healthy relationships, healthy giving, and also healthy living. Now, let's talk about an analogy: the stomach and the soul. The stomach is my favorite organ. I don't know about you. But think about your stomach. Your stomach has a natural capacity, a limit to what it can hold. If you keep eating beyond that capacity, the stomach expands unnaturally. At first, it may feel harmless, maybe even enjoyable, but over time, it causes strain, imbalance, and disease. Now imagine your emotional life works the same way. When you keep saying yes, when you mean no, when you carry everybody's financial problems, when you take responsibility for what's not yours, your emotional stomach begins to stretch. At first, it feels kind, then it becomes burdensome. Eventually, it turns into resentment, burnout, and guilt. Boundaries are your body's and soul's way of saying, this is what I can healthily hold. Beyond this point, I begin to harm myself. Now let's move on to boundaries and the black tax reality. Now, black tax is something that most of us experience, right? Whether you are the first one working at home, whether you're the first one who's made it out, the first to go to university, the expectation is there to carry everyone, to help, to provide, to fix, even when it costs us our peace. And while that desire comes from love and community, without boundaries, it can become a cycle of financial stress, guilt, and emotional exhaustion. When you keep giving without clarity, you're essentially letting others move your boundary stories. Now out of malice, not but they're out of habit and culture. But just like in the past, when these markers defined ownership and fairness, retaining your boundaries today is how you reclaim your power, your future, and your freedom. Setting boundaries within Black text is not rejection, it's restoration. It's bringing balance back into the relationship. Let's think about the ethics of fairness, right? When the French viewed boundaries as a form of justice, they viewed it as a way to ensure that everybody received what was fair. And that's the heart of healthy giving today. Boundaries help you move from guilt based giving to value based generosity, emotional reaction to intentional action, and hidden resentment to honest communication. Because fairness is not about everyone getting the same thing, but rather it's about everyone taking responsibility for their own portion. That is how we make generosity sustainable. Now, how does the full Black Text Full Freedom Framework help you to move you from knowing this truth to actually living it? Hi, if you have been enjoying this episode, I have something that you will love. It is a course that I have created which moves you from guilt based giving to empowered giving. It is called the Black Tax Full Freedom Framework, and I have left a link below. Let's get back to the episode. Let me walk you through the 4 key tools that make this transformation possible. Firstly, we have the full framework ebook. Now, this ebook has 5 transformation chapters that help you see blank text differently, not as a weight, but as a choice. You'll explore the rules of obligation, how to set limits, and how to give in a way that aligns with your values. Now, this is where awareness becomes wisdom. Second tool is the scripts. These are real life conversation scripts. This is where the theory meets real life. These are word for word scripts which are there to help you build confidence, but also help you to say no with compassion and without the emotional drama. Because freedom begins in conversation. You don't need to fight for peace, you can speak it. The third one is the reflective video course. Now, here we start with the history of Black text. Where does it come from? Guilt. Why do you feel guilty? These videos help you to personalize your plan and process your emotions because transformation happens when awareness meets action. The fourth tool is where you have a guided visualization journal. Now, here you are finally a calming and confidence building journal that helps you to mentally step into your boundary honoring, financially empowered future. You start imagining, affirming, and embodying your freedom identity every day because what you can see, you can step into. Boundaries begin as stones in the ground, markers that said the land is protected. Today, there are truths in your soul, markers that say This is life. This life is mine. For those of us navigating Black text, boundaries are not about isolation, they are about integrity, the sacred act of choosing sustainability over sacrifice. When you set boundaries, you're not turning away from your people. You're turning towards a healthier way to love them. Because freedom is not an escape, freedom is alignment. And the boundary is where love becomes sustainable. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, subscribe, and like. If this was helpful, I have dropped the link to my Black Text Full Freedom Framework below.